from MSNBC. Panel melts down after Trump says he's serious about running for a third term. Oh, boy.
Quick reaction, guys, to that Trump comment, entertaining a third term. You first, David.
Believe him. I think the biggest mistake of the last 8 years is we somehow fail to give credibility to Donald Trump's whims and his impulses, but we know it's true. And January 6th was a perfect example. If he says that he's not ruling it out, he's not ruling it out, and we should consider it a constitutional threat.
Okay. Susan?
He's been pushing the envelope on testing the Constitution, so I expect, that he'll continue to do that, maybe by seeking out a third term. But more importantly, short term, we're not talking about Signal and that scandal.
Oh, cringe. But that's the point here. Donald Trump said he's serious about running for a third term. He's not joking. And I'll tell you why he did, because it changes the news cycle. And she points it out. All they want to do is talk about Signalgate, which is like the biggest non-story I've ever heard. Like, I'm going to say it again because I don't care about Signalgate. The Department of Defense, the government, the president, they loop journalists in when they determine journalists should be looped in. A journalist got looped in, okay? I don't care. Now, do you guys think that Donald Trump is actually going to run for a third term?
No, I don't think so. All of the machinations of how it would have to happen would involve like some sort of J.D. Vance running, winning, and stepping down. And just on the basic of that alone.
No.
Aren't they talking about that?
No, if Trump actually ran for office.
No, I don't think that he would do that.
What if
they were talking about a loophole where
right?
Vance,
but what if Trump does run in 2028, and when they say you're ineligible, he says, "So sue me," and he brings it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court then determines that I believe it's the 22nd Amendment is actually unconstitutional.
Maybe they'll decide that it was signed with auto pen.
Oh yeah,
and it is therefore void. No, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think it's. I don't think that's going to be the jam.
This is why your liberal aunt hates you, because I'm serious. I'm serious. Like we talked earlier about people blocking off Tesla drivers and cutting them off and pulling them out of cars and hitting them. It's these types of comments that absolutely fill their minds with the most fantastical worst case scenario they've ever heard. They think he's a dictator. They think he's a fascist. And when he says stuff like this, it sets up especially the politically uninformed, the ones who only see headlines, the ones who don't look into it, who haven't paid attention to when people say outlandish things to change the news cycle. It would actually make him more likable to people if they were like, look, he's kind of scummy. He's trying to change the news cycle, but he's not doing it on purpose, but he's not doing it to actually seek a third term. That's actually more politically intelligent and diabolical, but that's not what they're going to take from this. They're going to take that they think he's a fascist dictator, and it's going to ruin your Christmas. It's going to ruin your 4th of July.
It's not going to ruin my Easter because liberals don't celebrate that.
Exactly.
What if it's all just ironic support because we're sick of the left? So, during the holidays when the family's like, he says he's going to run for a third term, and we don't really want him to, but we're like, good, I hope he wins. Go Trump. And we just in jest or ironically support it, and then we find like 20 years later, Robo-Trump is still president.
Yeah. The one thing the person I keep thinking of when they talk about the Trump third term is Christine Quinn, who was the head of the city council when Michael Bloomberg determined that he wanted to run for a third term. And she backed his run for a third term, and that was the end of her political career. And I think that there are a lot of people who would not back Trump's third term, whether they were in favor of it or not, because that would be the end of their political career as well. Because I don't think that he would get the pass like Bloomberg did in New York.
His doing it makes it quite tricky to support him because it seems so ridiculous.
It does seem silly.
Yeah. It kind of, for all the people who hate him, like imagine it was Biden had said this. Would you laugh it off like we're laughing it off?
Well, to be fair, Biden declared a new amendment to the Constitution with no authority.
I forgot about that.
He literally went...
ERA.
Yeah, and said the ERA is now an amendment to the Constitution. And the Democrats all agreed with him and cheered for it.
What's the ERA?
The Equal Rights Amendment.
It was proposed in the 70s. And then it was like, so women could have equal rights across the country because apparently all the laws that said we had equal rights across the country were not valid somehow. So it had to go get ratified by all the states, and it didn't get ratified by enough states in enough time, and so it was void, and the Supreme Court said that's void. You can't keep voting on that.
Well, it did get enough votes after the deadline.
After the deadline, which
and the courts were like,
nah.
Yeah. So the ERA, let me pull this one up, states, Article 1, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Section 3, the amendment shall take effect 2 years after the date of ratification.
And this is why the feminists were against it.
Biden says the Equal Rights Amendment is law. What happens next is unclear.
Right.
Well, and this is and like all the women who oppose trans and gender ideology were against this because Biden had already remade the definition of sex to mean that men who say they are women are women. So you already had a lot of women opposed to the ERA who were not supporting it after it got enough votes after the deadline. So that was
fair enough. You've got me on that one. But then, if I can, just on this this question, one thing I noticed about Trump is that he'll say a lot to try and push the conversation, and then it's out of the deal stuff, right? He'll say overplay. He'll say a ridiculous thing, and he ends up getting something that actually is great along the way. Two recent examples will be Trump Mara Gaza. He said that America is going to take over, which, by the way, his base don't want anything to do with another foreign issue. So it wasn't appealing to his own. He was, but what happened was that the Arab League nations came together and they came up with a $53 billion deal to actually get it. And so it proved. Now, a second thing would be him saying we don't want to, Europe needs to do more for defense. We don't want to have to shield everything that's going on in Russia. And he kind of oversteps it. And then you have the Oval Office, which that's seen. And what actually happened out of that was that Europe stepped up. So he's kind of, something ridiculous happens and he gets his way and it falls in that. So what I don't understand with him saying he's going to run for a third term is what is exactly that he's hoping to, what's the art of the deal in this? What's the thing he's hoping to get out of it?
I think what you're saying is that he's trying to move the news cycle along. And
it's just
So Trump. The funny thing is that Democrats have argued Trump does this, but they always seem to get amnesia. And the issue is whenever there's a big scandal, Donald Trump will say something outrageous, which triggers the media. The media then goes for the sensational headline and abandons the thing that's actually politically disadvantageous.
Which is what in this case?
Well, I think Signalgate wasn't going away. That's an obvious one.
But you don't think... Okay, so Signalgate, you said, wasn't that big a deal. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, I don't think Signalgate is at all a big deal in America. I don't think Americans care about Signalgate particularly. I think the media and the chattering classes do.
Right.
I think it's a big deal in the rest of the world.
What?
Because...
Well, they don't know anything about our government.
That might be the case, but I think what a lot of had happened is a lot of people will have seen Signalgate and been like, oh, America don't really want to get involved. They're really, I think Russians, Russia and China and the adversaries of America will see that and be like, China will be like, this is a really good time to invade Taiwan.
Do you mean the messages of Signalgate?
I'm saying the leak itself.
You mean
but so my argument initially, I'm not entirely convinced now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they brought Goldberg into that chat on purpose because he would be tricked into espousing their talking points, which it really does seem like is what he did. When you read these chats, I said there's no shorthand, and text groups usually have more messages than this in shorthand, not a perfect scripted yes, no, yes, no. That seemed weird to me. Why would they be having this kind of talk 2 hours before the strikes? Why wouldn't they be flying to D.C. and having a discussion in a secure conference room or the SCIF to discuss these attacks, going over logistics? For what purpose would that chat even exist? It makes no sense to me. Not to mention there was no classified information in it, save the argument that launch times may be classified. I don't think they actually cared all that much. I don't know if the probability dictates that they intentionally brought Goldberg in, but because they wanted to trick him. But the message that came out, J.D. Vance, this is not a line with Donald Trump's message. The American people don't even know the Houthis are. I could not have dreamed up a better statement to the American people.
Yes, very good statement to the American people, but it's not them that is the problem.
It's what Trump and his team care about.
Of course it is, but the message it sends to the adversaries of America, and I appreciate this is an America first, and I also appreciate very much the message within the signal.
To address what you said about Russia and China, Trump campaigned on this. So Russia and China should already know. Iran should already know. Trump's not interested in foreign entanglements. He told the American people, no new wars. He was championed by the libertarians specifically because he didn't start new wars.
That's the case. But Trump is also realizes strength, peace through strength. He understands the power of deterrence. Sorry, and so he's not someone who's like, he wants no war by saying we're prepared to use war. He's that kind of a president. He understands the power he wields as American president, and that peace can come that way. So. What the message is, my concern with those messages is that it's like, he's actually not prepared. China could take Taiwan, and Trump doesn't want to get involved.
I disagree. Pete Hegseth, I think it was Hegseth who said in the messages, we have to do it. We're the only ones who can do it. We just need them to pay us for it. So then he went ahead and did it. I got to be honest. I think one of the reasons they're hammering so hard on Signalgate, the scandal, is because they don't want Trump to get the PR narrative out about the messages that were sent. If the story was the context of the messages, it's a great story for Trump. A journalist reports on the deliberations, deep and thoughtful. Look at what the spokesperson said. This looks like a deep and thoughtful deliberation over an attack. Trump knew that if he launched an attack on Yemen, it would make him look bad in the eyes of his supporters. A video of the interview I did with Trump ended up getting a lot of play because Trump said, we're not going to do this. Diplomacy will work. So I imagine it like Trump says, we got to bomb the Houthis. They're blocking the Red Sea. Europe's pissed. And then they're going, we could, but if we do this, your base is going to be pissed off. We do not need foreign entanglements. Trump said, well, we got to do it.
How do we get the message in such a way that we look reluctant and we don't really want to do it?
To the American people, who a majority of them do not want war. The narrative shifted away. I mean, this is crazy. Glenn Greenwald's blasting this off. I'm getting tagged by tweet after tweet after tweet from all these personalities saying, look at what Trump said to Tim. We are not going to do this. And then what happened? A couple days after that story, when Trump was in the scandal over all the activists and people complaining about the military strikes, it shifted to this evil journalist leaked information on the president to make him look bad. They didn't even want to do it. All of a sudden, the conversation on the right and in America about why Trump was bombing a foreign country was gone. And the only thing that mattered was some doofy moron accidentally texted a journalist, which is the biggest non-story. Holy crap.
Okay, so I'll go along with that.
Real quick, one simplified point. What matters more, that Donald Trump started bombing Yemen, a country we are not at war with, or a journalist published some messages?
If that's the case, why, and forgive me if I'm being slow here, why then do the third term thing as a red herring? Why would you want to get people off that story?
I don't know that the third term thing is specifically to shift the narrative off of Signalgate.
Right. Okay.
It may be. It could be the deportations. The other thing that Signalgate distracted from is Trump was in the thick of it with the judges over his deportations of Tren de Aragua. The reason why he wants to get the PR off those, they fundraise off it. The media runs these stories about deportation. Trump has to then deal with all these legal battles where they're raising tons of money. I got to say, Signalgate was a great story for Trump in so many ways. There's nothing to fundraise off of. When deporting a gay barber, they're going Donald Trump or what was her name? Romesa?
Something like that.
Yeah, Osterk or whatever. They say his brown shirts are kidnapping people. We need your help. Donate now. The Gestapo is here. Trump's a fascist. Now the whole story in the press is Trump's guy texted a journalist. Whoops. What do you fundraise off of? Stop Trump from texting the Atlantic. Give us money. Nope. Can't raise money off that. So Trump running for a third term may actually help them, to be honest. So I don't know why he does it. To be honest, sometimes Trump just says dumb shit. You know what I mean? He's that kind of guy. Steve Bannon mentioned it and he goes, well, I'll do it maybe. I'm not joking. Because he's poking fun or he's prodding, whatever.
Yeah.
But
he does like to say stuff.
But maybe I'm crazy. Maybe they really just brought some moron into the chat. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel and we will see you all there.